Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. Chapter 6. Pig and Pepper. For a little while, Alice just stood there, looking at the house and wondering what to do next. Suddenly, a footman in a snappy uniform came running out of the woods. Alice thought he looked like a footman because of his fancy clothes. But if you looked at his face, well, he kind of looked like a fish. He knocked on the door with his knuckles, and it was opened by another footman who looked like a frog. This frog footman had big, bulging eyes, and they both had wild, curly hair that looked like they had been dipped in powdered sugar. Alice giggled at the sight. The fish footman handed a huge letter, nearly as big as he was, to the frog footman. In a very serious voice, the fish footman said, "For the Duchess. An invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman repeated it, but in a funny order, "From the Queen. An invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." They both bowed so low that their hair got all tangled up, which made Alice burst out laughing. But when she peeked out again, the fish footman had disappeared, and the frog footman was just sitting there, staring up at the sky like he was dreaming. Alice, feeling a little brave, went up to the door and knocked. But the frog footman said, "There's no use knocking, because I'm on the same side of the door as you. And besides, they're making so much noise inside that no one could hear you anyway." Inside, Alice could hear a lot of howling, sneezing, and loud crashes, like dishes were being thrown everywhere. "Spoon, fork, and knife with plate," Alice asked. "How do I get in?" The frog footman just sighed and said, "I'll sit here until tomorrow, or maybe the next day." Just then, a big plate came flying out of the door, and the frog footman didn't even blink as it barely missed his nose. Alice, very confused now, knocked again. "How do I get in?" she asked, a little louder this time. "Are you even supposed to get in?" the frog footman replied, looking up at the sky again. "Why is everyone so weird here?" The frog footman just shrugged. "I'll sit here, on and off, for days and days." He seemed perfectly content to do nothing. "Ugh, you're hopeless," Alice muttered to herself, and without another word, she opened the door and walked right in. She found herself in a kitchen full of smoke. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool, holding a baby. The cook was stirring a huge pot of soup that smelled like it had way too much pepper. The whole room seemed to be sneezing. "There's definitely too much pepper in that soup," Alice thought as she tried not to sneeze. Even the Duchess was sneezing. The only ones who didn't sneeze were the cook and a big Cheshire Cat sitting on the hearth, grinning from ear to ear. Alice, curious, asked, "Why is your cat grinning like that?" "That's a Cheshire Cat," the Duchess replied. "And that's why." She then shouted at the baby, "Pig!" Alice jumped, but it turned out she was yelling at the baby, not her. "Why does the cat grin?" Alice asked again, trying to steer the conversation. "They all grin," the Duchess said, "and most of them do. But I've never seen a cat grin before." Alice exclaimed. "You don't know much," said the Duchess, sounding a little rude. Alice didn't like the tone of that one bit, but she decided to ask something else. Just then, the cook started throwing kitchenware, fire irons, plates, and saucepans, at the Duchess and baby. They didn't even notice. Alice was terrified, thinking, if they don't stop, the baby's going to lose its nose. "Why doesn't anyone care about this?" Alice cried out in alarm. The Duchess grumbled, "If everyone minded their own business, the world would go around faster." "Well," Alice said, trying to be smart, "that wouldn't be a good thing. Think about day and night. The earth takes 24 hours to spin around. Chop off her head, the Duchess suddenly shouted, without warning. Alice nervously glanced at the cook, who was busy stirring soup. 24 hours? Or is it 12? Alice muttered to herself, hoping the cook wasn't paying attention. But the Duchess was busy again, singing a funny lullaby to the baby. Speak roughly to your little boy. And beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy. Because he knows it teases. And the baby howled in agreement, wow! 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 The Duchess kept shaking the baby with each line, and Alice wondered what kind of world she'd stumbled into. She thought about leaving, but then the Duchess flung the baby toward Alice. Here. You can nurse it for a while, she said. I'm off to play croquet with the Queen. The cook threw a frying pan after her, but it missed. Alice caught the baby, but it was all squirmy and squishy like a starfish, so it took her a minute to figure out how to hold it. Once she did, she carried it outside. But as soon as Alice looked at the baby's face more closely, she noticed something strange. Its nose was turning up like a pig's snout, and its eyes were shrinking. Suddenly, the baby grunted like a pig. Alice gasped. If you're going to turn into a pig, she said seriously, I can't be your friend anymore. Sure enough, the baby snorted and, with a final grunt, poof, it turned into a little pig and trotted off into the woods. Alice sighed in relief. Just then, Alice noticed the Cheshire Cat again, sitting on a branch of a nearby tree. Did you say pig or fig? The cat asked, grinning even wider. I said pig, Alice replied, and please stop appearing and disappearing like that. It makes me dizzy. The cat replied, all right, and this time, it disappeared very slowly, starting with its tail, and then the grin stayed behind for a while, still hanging in the air. Now that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Alice thought, as she started walking toward the house of the March Hare. It has to be the right house. The chimneys look like ears, and the roof is covered in fur. Alice took a deep breath. I hope it's not as crazy as it was in March. Thank you for watching. Next. Chapter 7. A Mad Tea Party. Please like, share and subscribe.